is the Flex Network. Flex on everybody.
Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flex Network. I am your host, as always, Flex Shane. You can follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. And of course, today's episode is brought to you by Thrive Fantasy. So go to your app store right now, search Thrive Fantasy, and download the app now. When you go and you deposit your first deposit of $20 and you use the promo code FLEX, that's FLEX, F-L-E-X, FLEX, they will match or they will get an instant deposit bonus of $20. So go now, download Thrive Fantasy, and prop up now. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So today is going to be an interesting one for you guys. First of all, as you can tell, I'm flying solo here. So it's just me. I'm talking to myself in the world. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, Flex Matt is off gallivanting somewhere down in Texas with our other boy, Flex Mike. And who knows? It's a Saturday night. Al's probably out at the clubs. You know how it is. He doesn't really care about COVID. He's out there clubbing. I, on the other hand, I'm here. I'm grinding. And one thing that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to come out with a show every single week. Sometimes I'll be solo. Sometimes I'll have some guests. But what I'm going to be talking about is my favorite flex plays of the week. Now, this is obviously going to change for different teams because obviously it's all going to depend on the types of players that you have available. But the types of players that we like to look at, look, we're not going to go and say, okay, play Christian McCaffrey, well, not Miles Sanders because he's out this week, but these guys that are obvious. We're going to give you some deeper plays to help you really differentiate because a lot of the leagues that we like to play in, they're 3 wide receivers. They're often 2 flex positions. So you really have to go and kind of get your hands dirty a little bit with some of these different positions. So those are the types of players that we're going to be talking about. But another special feature that I'm going to start talking about every week here is I am going to talk about some of my favorite plays over at Thrive Fantasy. So what is Thrive Fantasy? So first of all, it is a daily fantasy sports app for player props. That means it's a little bit different. It's not one of those salary cap type softwares. It's a different type of game altogether. It's kind of unique, and it's not like your typical player prop site where you just go and you find a prop that you like and it's an over under or how many touchdowns is this guy going to score and you get odds on it. This is actually a very specific game. So Thrive Fantasy, they actually have a few different types of games. The one that we really care about, that's just the Flex Network, is the NFL game, but they also have NBA, MLB, PGA, and esports. So I said at the top of the show, but again, if you go to your app store, you download Thrive Fantasy from your app store, and on your first deposit of $20 or more, you'll get an instant bonus of $20 if you use the promo code FLEX. Of course, it's the Flex Network. What else are we doing? We're flexing on our competition. So how does the game work? Well, let's talk about NFL. So what it is you have the choice of 20 different player props. And for each prop, for example, Aaron Rodgers is going to pass 263 yards. You choose over or you choose under. Now, based on the higher probable outcome, there's a higher point total associated with that. And essentially, you choose 10 of your favorite props out of the 20. You build your favorite lineup and you go up against competitors. Now, there's different types of games out there. The one that I like to play, because I like to play the cash game type plays, is up against 100 other players, similar to your 50-50s that you play on some of those other sites. But you can also play head-to-head. There's some larger contests that you can enter. So go check it out. The one that I'm going to be talking about today is the $5 NFL Week 1 Sunday Rush contest. Now, this is one that I think is kind of fun because, if you want to just, dip your toe a little bit, you don't want to throw a lot of cash at it right away. This is one, it's only $5. You can get in it. And I can't talk about all the different props, but what I can talk about is some of the ones that I like, that I went through, and we'll just get into it right now. So like I said, what makes it kind of cool is that the different types of props, it's not just all wide receivers. It's not just all running backs. It's not just all quarterbacks. It's different types of games. So for example, let's talk about this, okay? So one of the first props that I want to talk about is Aaron Rodgers against Minnesota. So the props is specifically that he's going to have over or under 263.5 pass yards. Now, I am going to hammer the under on this particular prop. And the reason why is, first of all, let's look at what he did last year in 2019. he averaged 250 pass yards in 2019, which is, you know, that makes that 263-yard line pretty solid. I'd say it's pretty sharp. But when you look at what we expect from Green Bay and Minnesota, I mean, it's in Minnesota, or excuse me, it's in Green Bay, but we expect them to run the ball a lot. I'm expecting a lot of Aaron Jones. I'm expecting a lot of Dalvin Cook. And yes, I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers is going to get his, but who does he really have on the field? He's got Devontae Adams and he's got a bunch of other guys. Is it Marquez Valdes-Scantling? I don't know. I mean, he could be good for a big play, but I'm going to hammer the under on that particular prop. Now, in the same game, I'm going to come back. And again, you get to choose between 20 different props, but because I like Aaron Rodgers with the under, I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook. The prop specifically is over under 77.5 rush yards. For the same reasons above, I'm going to hammer the over on this one. I think that Dalvin Cook is going to get fed. He just got paid. You know, they're going to want to use this guy. So 77.5 yards, I'm hammering the over. Another one that I like, again, that I think is going to be a bit of a shootout is Russell Wilson at Atlanta. Over under 21.5 completions. I'm going to hammer the over on this one. Look, we know that Seattle wants to run the ball. It's what they wanted to do in neutral game script situations. They typically want to run the ball, but they've got guys like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Russ is going to cook this year. I think that he's going to throw the ball in this game. We know that Atlanta can score points, but their defense isn't the best, which means if it's going to become a track meet, we know that Russell Wilson's going to have to throw the ball. He's going to take over that game, hammer the over 21.5. Love it. Now, another guy, a guy that I actually like to bounce back this year is Odell Beckham. This week he's playing Baltimore. So the specific prop is over under 4.5 receptions. Now, you might think, okay, Odell, he's absolutely going to go and give a prop. Or he's absolutely going to go and catch 10 balls. But you have to remember, he's playing against the buzzsaw that is Baltimore. And look, I'm not entirely confident that he's going to get fed the ball. We know that Jarvis Landry has that built-in chemistry already with Baker Mayfield. So I'm going to hammer the under of 4.5 receptions for Odell Beckham. Now, on the other side, we got Keenan Allen going at Cincinnati. 5.5 receptions over under. I'm going to hammer the over on this one. I mean, guys, who the hell else does he have to throw the ball to? And I would expect at least 10, 12 targets this game. So I'm going to hammer the over 5.5 receptions for Keenan Allen. And finally, my fifth prop that I'm going to share with you guys today is Ezekiel Elliott. Sunday nighter at the Rams. I like the specific prop is 111.5 rush plus reception yards. On this one, guys, I'm going to hammer the over. Look, we know that he can catch the ball. He got 54 receptions last year for 419 yards. And obviously, we know that Dallas is going to want to run the ball. That's what they do with Ezekiel Elliott. I know that Tony Pollard's involved, but I still think that they're going to go with the GOAT. They're going to go with Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm going to hammer the over 111.5 rush plus reception yards. So there you have it, guys. Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, Russ Wilson, Odell Beckham, Keenan Allen, Ezekiel Elliott. Those are some of my favorite props for this week. All right. So we want to talk about our favorite flex plays of the week. So this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to focus on the wide receiver and the running back position primarily. Some of these guys are kind of obvious, but really what it comes down to is what are your choices, right? So some of these guys, they're viable options because of injuries on their team. Now, the question becomes, do you play them over other specific players? And obviously that's specific to you, but these are some of the players that I think are going to have a pretty solid opportunity to do well for you this week. So I'm not going to bury the lead. Marvin Jones going against Chicago. Kenny Golladay is doubtful this week, which means he's probably not going to play. That's what it's coming down to at this point. So while in general for Matt Stafford, I was all in on Matt Stafford for this season. It obviously hurts his outcome for this week, but I think that Marvin Jones is going to get fed this week. We know that the backfield is going to be a bit of a mess. DeAndre Swift is a special player, but they still want to get Kerryon involved. They have Adrian Peterson. It's an absolute mess. But where it's not a mess is Marvin Jones. Last week when he was healthy and when he was playing, he was averaging 14.9 fantasy points per game. Now, Marvin Jones was a guy who you were probably getting around 7 or 8 of your drafts this year. And he's a player that I've seen it because I know we do some work over at DFS Army, and it's a lot of people have been asking about if they want to start Marvin Jones. To me, it's a hard yes. You're starting Marvin Jones. You're not thinking about it. You're getting him into your flex position or that wide receiver 3 position, and you're going to be happy that you did it. Another player that I really like this week, who a lot of people are starting to cool on, is Cam Akers, of course, of the LA Rams this week versus Dallas. So the reason that people are starting to cool on Cam Akers is simply because they're talking about a 3-way committee in that backfield with Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson. I'm not buying it. Look, we know what Malcolm Brown is. He's 27 years old. He's a grinder. He's done really nothing notable in his career. His advanced metrics aren't that great. He's got a 4.62 40-yard dash, a 56th percentile speed score. He's just a guy. I mean, it's fine, but he's just a guy. And then we know Darrell Henderson. Look, we know that he has some of the good measurables, but he didn't do it last year when he had the opportunity. And Cam Akers produced on one of the worst teams at Florida State. They had the 115th ranked O-line last year. Now, people are talking about fading him this year because the Rams O-line is not one of the best in the league, but it's still ranked as the 19th or 20th overall offensive line. And when I really start to worry about those O-lines is when you get to the extremes, right? You know, if you're talking about like an Indianapolis that has one of the top 5 O-lines, or on the other hand, Cincinnati, which still has one of the bottom O-lines, that's when you really want to worry. But Cam Akers, he's got a 4.47 40-yard dash, 89th percentile speed score. He's 5'10", 217 pounds. You took him in the 5th round or the 6th round of your draft. This is a guy that you're going to want to get in week 1. People were worried about Clyde Edwards-Helaire potentially getting usurped by Darrell Williams. We all saw what happened on Thursday night. It's not going to happen. Play Cam Akers, flex on your competition. All right, so a guy that a lot of people have been talking about this week, of course, is DeSean Jackson. I would say at this point, you know, everybody's on him, and the question becomes, well, why would you not play him? Well, look, we know that against Washington, potentially, Washington right now, they've got a pretty nasty defensive front, which means that Carson Wentz could potentially be rushed. And the problem with a guy like DeSean Jackson is that it takes time for his routes to develop. But we also know that he can go absolutely nuclear. We saw it last year in week 1 when he put up a line of 8 for 154 with 2 touchdowns. He was the 2nd overall wide receiver on the week with 35 points in PPR leagues. And we know that the Washington secondary is not exactly that improved from last year. So while there's obviously some risk, I think DeSean Jackson is a guy you want to hammer in your lineups. Boston Scott. Look, this one hurts me a little bit because, you know, here at the Flex Network, we're obviously huge Miles Sanders people. We love Miles Sanders, but he didn't make the flight. And Boston Scott, man, this kid is elusive. He's got a 4.45 speed with a 97th percentile agility score. He's going to likely split carries with Corey Clement in the backfield. But Corey Clement, again, he's just a guy, right? And we know that Doug Peterson, he likes to use his different players. And that's one of the reasons we always worried about maybe potentially drafting Miles Sanders last year, because we didn't know what the usage was going to be. But again, Boston Scott is a much superior player to a guy like Corey Clement. And Doug Peterson likes to win games. So I'm cool rocking a Boston Scott in my lineup. All right, somebody a little bit deeper. And he's a rookie that we liked last year that really didn't do much. He's coming to his 2nd year on an improved Indy team, and his name is Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell is probably somebody you were able to get. If you were listening to the Flex Network, you were trying to hammer this guy in the 10th, 11th, 12th round. You wanted this guy in your teams this year because last year he had the injuries and he really didn't do much. But this guy ran a 4.31 40. He's got a 97th percentile speed and burst. And don't forget, last year, Indy took him at 2.27 in the 2019 draft. I know a lot of people are talking about Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman is going to be good. He's an absolute beast. But Paris Campbell's a beast too. And I can see Paris Campbell being deployed a little bit more out of the slot. And really, I mean, look, Phillip Rivers, he loves the slot players. Keenan Allen, I know he doesn't just play in the slot, but he likes those lower depth of target type players. Paris Campbell's the kind of guy who can go on a 5-6 yard slant and pretty much take it to the house and outrun everybody on the field. So Paris Campbell is an absolute nuclear weapon. He's somebody that we've loved ever since he came into the NFL. I think that this is going to be a good week to, if you need to find that flex position 2 or that wide receiver 3. And look, there's some injuries right now. Kenny Golladay is injured. We just talked about him. Cortland Sutton is potentially out. A guy like Deebo Samuel, you might have been taking a shot on. He was put on IR today. So Paris Campbell is a very viable flex play this week, and he's an absolute nuclear option. Another nuclear option that we like, Henry Ruggs of your Las Vegas Raiders, going up against Carolina, one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. Guys, you know that I have not admittedly been the highest Henry Ruggs supporter. I like him as a talent. I just think that there were so many other talented wide receivers in this class. He just wasn't my favorite. And you know that I love Bryan Edwards. I'm a Bryan Edwards guy till I die. But you know that Gruden is going to dial up some plays to get the ball in Henry Ruggs' hands. And Carolina, man, they have, if not the worst defense, one of the worst defenses in the entire league. So you know Henry Ruggs is going to get fed. He's a nuclear option. I think he's a safe play. A guy that I wasn't sure I wanted to have on this list, but I think just because of opportunity, we have to put him on the list, is James Robinson of Jacksonville. I mean, he's projected to be the starter against Indy this week. Look, game script suggests that Jacksonville, because they're so horrible, is probably going to fall behind early, which means that James Robinson is not necessarily going to get a lot of opportunity to rack up those fantasy points. But I still think you got him off the wire probably this week, or you drafted him late in your drafts. And if you're not going to play him this week, when are you going to play this guy? So if he is a viable flex play. I don't love him, but if you need a solid floor of 8 to 10 points, I think that a guy like James Robinson can get you that floor, and it's probably a safe option. A guy who, maybe not necessarily a floor play, but an absolute nuclear upside play. Do you guys see a trend here? I'm always going for the upside in my flex spots. Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team up against Philly. J.D. McKissick was listed as a starter. Bryce Love, he's another satellite back. And of course, Peyton Barber is a grinder. Antonio Gibson, man, he is a special player. And I don't think that he's going to be the every down grinder back. I mean, that's not his role. When we were drafting him in our rookie drafts earlier this season, he was going around the end of the second round. And the reason for that is because his role is still not really defined. Is he going to be more of a wide receiver? Is he going to be more of a running back? I think he's going to be one of those Swiss Army knife type players. When I think about how they can deploy him, I think about a guy like Deebo Samuel, where they want to get the ball in his hand in the backfield, and get him moving around formations. And I think that he's going to be playing on the field when maybe a guy like Peyton Barber is in the backfield. So I like that. Antonio Gibson, he's a talented player, and he just knows he's got a nose for the end zone. So he's a player that I want to jam in my lineups if I can. A guy who, maybe isn't in a flex position per se, but maybe one of your third wide receivers, your second wide receivers, Marquise Brown. The reason I bring it up is because people always want to draft Marquise Brown, and then they're worried because, look, the usage is sometimes going to be lower in the games. Like Baltimore, we know is they're a run first kind of offense. Marquise Brown, he's got another year under his belt. We had John the Guru Hansen on the show a couple weeks back, and he absolutely loves Marquise Brown. We got the Guru stamp of approval. I'm all in on Marquise Brown this year. I think he's going to have an amazing year. He put on about 15 or 20 pounds of muscle, which, for a guy who came into the league at about 165 pounds, that's what you need. That's what you want. He's still small, but apparently he didn't lose a step. So that's really important. So Marquise Brown, lock him in. Love it. Another player, probably one of your wide receiver threes, not necessarily the sexiest player, but if you're looking for a solid floor, Jamison Crowder of the Jets going up against Buffalo this week. I think that he's going to be Sam Darnold's number one guy. He's probably going to get 10 to 15 targets, like no exaggeration. Jamison Crowder is the kind of guy who can go like 8 for 80. And you just, you're pulling out your hair because he just can't get into the friggin' end zone. But 8 for 80 is still 16 points in the PPR league. And as your wide receiver 3 / a flex position, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I have one more player. It's a player that's, I don't know if it's just my bias. Maybe I just want to will it into existence. But Jerick McKinnon is my filthy deep play of the week. He's projected to be the third running back on that team, but we know that Jerick McKinnon was brought in because of his pass catching prowess. And look, going up against Arizona, they're a putrid team. And the only risk here is that he gets game scripted out, because if and when San Francisco goes up, Jerick McKinnon isn't really going to have a role, because that'll probably be more of a Tevin Coleman / Raheem Mostert grinding down the clock. But Jerick McKinnon can absolutely be involved early. We know that Shanahan will get his guys involved. Deebo Samuel, we just mentioned, was put on IR, so he's out for the next 3 weeks. And look, Jerick McKinnon was a guy that went after 2 years ago. They got rid of Matt Breida this year because they knew that Jerick McKinnon was going to be healthy. And so far, knock on wood, he is healthy. So if you're digging deep, and Jerick McKinnon is probably available on a lot of waiver wires out there. People are already battling injuries. It's week friggin' 1, and there's already injuries. Jerick McKinnon is a guy that you can do a lot worse on, and he's a guy that I think you can play as a deep flex play. So that's it for my favorite flex plays of the week. Woozy. I'm here, brother. I'm here. I'll talk to you. All right. I'm going to answer some of your questions before I get off. All right. So here we go. I'm going down these. Quick question. Should I do Breeze, Thomas stack, or Russell Wilson? This is interesting. So when I was looking at my Thrive Fantasy plays of the week, one of the things that I considered was Drew Brees or Tom Brady. And if Mike Evans is going to be playing this week, they've got Chris Godwin. We know Tampa is going to be able to put up points, but so can the Saints. I really think that it's going to be more of to beat Tom Brady in the past, teams ran the ball against him. So I worry a little bit about just overall the overall passing yardage in that game. I think it's going to be more of a running type game, despite what people think. But look, to stack Brees and Thomas, Thomas is going to get 13, 14 targets this week, and absolutely is going to be viable to put up a touchdown. And so it's Brees and Thomas or Russ Wilson. I mean, I don't have the pricing in front of me, but I would say Brees Thomas is a pretty safe stack. Russell Wilson, you guys, I was talking about him at the start of the show. I think that he's going to be throwing a lot of the ball. So really it just depends on who you can pair with Russell Wilson. But I'm never going to say don't stack Brees and Thomas, because I think that's absolutely elite. Absolutely. Who's going to win the college national championship? I don't know. We'll just see if they get through the college season first. Not going to call that one. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, we're the Flex Network. We're brought to you by Thrive Fantasy. Go to your app store now. Download Thrive Fantasy. You're welcome, Eisenberg. Download Thrive Fantasy, and when you deposit $20 or more and use a promo code FLEX, that's promo code FLEX, they will give you an instant deposit bonus of $20. It's a really fun game. I'm kind of becoming addicted to it. I really recommend it. Look, it's just another avenue. And I think what I like about this is that because of the over-under type of style game, you're going to be able to avoid those sharks out there. And depending on the type of contest you want to play, I think that it's really viable that if you know football and you're comfortable with playing prop bets, I think you can do pretty well. So go download Thrive Fantasy, use promo code FLEX, and on your first deposit of $20 or more, they will give you an instant deposit bonus of $20. So go do that now. So for Flex Matt, for Season Long Says, I am Flex Shane. We are the Flex Network.
The Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah.